Tune into Nice Radio every Saturday at 7:30 a.m. for A View from the Outside, hosted by Brereton Horne. A View from the Outside takes a look at key issues affecting St Vincent and the Grenadines and gives a global perspective on how these issues are viewed. Host Brereton Horne will examine a variety of topics to enlighten, stimulate debate, and explore solutions. Hear the facts, hear the real-life stories, hear A View from the Outside. Join Brereton Horne at 7:30 a.m. every Saturday on Nice Radio for A View from the Outside.
On A View from the Outside this week being the 15th of December 2018, we look at division, D-I-V-I-S-I-O-N, division, with the view being that the division, in particular political division, which is engendered and encouraged by the current government in St Vincent and the Grenadines, is taking the country and its people down a path to despair, and if left unchecked, can negatively affect every single Vincentian and can lead to the destruction of an entire generation. The Collins Dictionary tells us that a division is a significant distinction between two groups, which causes the groups to be considered as very different and separate. History has shown us that when political division becomes embedded in any society or country, that society or country and its people suffer long-term effects or long-term damage. History has also shown us that in countries where division was engendered and encouraged, the people become anxious and they agitate to end that division. The annals of history is replete with examples of people who become euphoric when the division which paralyzed their country is eventually ended. One such example is when the Berlin Wall, which for 28 years divided and separated the people of Germany into East and West Germany, when the wall fell on the 9th of November, 1989. It is reported that the East Germans were met on the other side of the wall by their West German counterparts with flowers and champagne, and that they celebrated the dismantling of the wall for weeks and weeks after that. Another example is when, after approximately 50 years, apartheid was dismantled in South Africa. Apartheid was that heinous and murderous system of government where it was embedded in law that whites were superior to blacks, and as a consequence, blacks were constantly brutalized, imprisoned, and even killed. They were placed to live in the poorest and most dilapidated parts of the country called townships. The dismantling of apartheid started with the release of Nelson Mandela on the 11th of February 1990, after he spent 27 years in prison for having stood up for and on behalf of his people. The pictures which were beamed across the world showed the euphoria of the South African people and people from across the world generally. While the division in St Vincent and the Grenadines has not reached the extreme of the Berlin Wall or apartheid, it is worth bearing in mind, and it is worth bearing those examples and other examples in mind also. It is worth bearing in mind in order to guard against such division getting to those extremes in St Vincent and the Grenadines. And because of that, it becomes necessary to warn against the fostering of division, and especially against political division in St Vincent and the Grenadines. Many have concluded that since the ULP took over government in St Vincent and the Grenadines in 2001, they have done more, much more than any other government before them to create political division along party lines among the people of the country. When they first got into office, they made pronouncements about unity and about everyone working together for the betterment of the country. However, many believe that their true intentions soon emerged thereafter, making it clear that they do everything in words and in action to create division in order to rule the people of the country. Many believe that they have infiltrated the trade unions and have targeted the executive and committee members. And they have left these people putting party before workers' rights. Some of them are now seen to be standing up. Some of these executive members and committee members are now seen to be standing up for government and government policies rather than defending the rights of the workers whom they're supposed to represent. The same workers who pay their dues to be represented by the union. They do everything, that's the government, they do everything to vilify and destroy the presidents of other unions who have the fortitude to stand up for their members and highlight the issues which affect their members. The government, they do everything to create division among the general membership of these unions and executive and committee members, and they specifically target the presidents. Many believe that the government have infiltrated the church and have created division among churches. They have also created division among the membership within churches. The division has become so extreme that some church members do not speak to other members within the same church if they know or perceive those other members not to be supporting the government. The church has now become so steeped and immersed in politics that preachers, while preaching to their congregation, regurgitate the words of the Prime Minister. Many believe that the government has engendered and created division among protesters. Many believe that they encourage their own supporters to come out on the streets to serve as counter-protesters whenever there is a protest against their government. It has been shown that protesters who support the government and its policies are given preferential treatment and allowed to protest on the side of the street closest to the courthouse and the House of Parliament, while other protesters are not allowed on that side of the road. The latest evidence of division was on display during the recent parliamentary debate of the bills in the House of Parliament in respect of the production of cannabis. It was widely known that members of the local Rastafarian community had indicated their intention to mount a protest against the passing of the bills into law. They announced their intention on radio and on social media. The reason for such protests, they said, was because they felt and still feel that because they are the ones who risked everything and have been at the forefront of cannabis production, albeit illegally, in St Vincent and the Grenadines, they, being the traditional farmers, that their interest is not sufficiently reflected in the bills. On the day of the final reading of the bills, when the Rastafarians mounted their protest, they were greeted with opposing protesters who were towing the government's line. They were all decked out in green T-shirts. Most of them sported dreadlocks like the Rastafarians. It is worth noting that they were allowed to protest on the side of the street closest to the House of Parliament. Many believe that those protesters in green T-shirts were specifically organized to create division, a division which is growing in St Vincent and the Grenadines, and which has left many Rastafarians feeling disenfranchised and totally dissatisfied. That is a division which needs to be watched for the betterment of peace and tranquility in St Vincent and the Grenadines. There are many more examples of division being deliberately created in the country by the current government in order to divide and rule, including trying to create division in relation to social media users in the Vincentian diaspora, who they disparagingly refer to as internet crazies. We, on A View from the Outside, are asking all Vincentians to be aware of these instances of division. We are asking you not to sit idly by and continue to allow it to happen. We are asking you not to leave it too late when irreparable damage is done. We are asking you to protect your future, your children's future, and the future of the country by rejecting such division. We encourage you, especially at this time of year, Christmas time, when people are meant to be merry and be happy together. We encourage you to live as one people for the benefit of the entire country and not for the benefit of a selected few. In doing so, in rejecting that division, we ask you to pay heed to the words of U.S. Representative and Civil Rights Leader John Lewis, who said, and I quote, "Not one of us can rest, be happy, be at home, be at peace with ourselves until we end hatred and division. Vincentians, act now and reject the attempts at division in the country." Until next week, Randy and all of the listeners, this is Brereton Horne with A View from the Outside, with a reminder to send feedback, as usual, to aviewfromtheoutside@hotmail.com. That's a view from the outside @hotmail.com. Have a pleasant Saturday, a wonderful Sunday, and a productive week ahead. All the best to you, Randy, and the listeners.